Robin Williams, before taking his life, said that the worst feeling you can have is not the feeling of being alone. It's being with people that make you feel alone. If you're somebody that has a lot of friends, but you still feel alone, maybe you've judged yourself for it. Maybe you haven't known what the cause is. Maybe you feel like, why is this happening? I have tons of people around me. Or maybe you're someone who doesn't have tons of friends and you still feel that. This is a video I want to make for you because I think sometimes we think that the people around us are going to save us from this deep loneliness that we feel. And I want to challenge that through this video. And I want to give maybe some keys for how you can get free from some of that loneliness. This is for men. You know, a lot of men deal with this isolation, this desire to have all the answers, this desire to get it all right. You know, if I can just get it all right, then I'll be enough. And if I'm enough, then I'll be accepted and loved. And if I'm loved, then I won't feel alone anymore. And I think we sometimes forget that's what's happening under the surface. So many of us, we work so hard. And I know for me, I felt so alone most of my life. I was this kid that was kind of overweight. My brother was super fit, super athletic, got straight A's very easily. And I had to take medication for my ADD. I don't really fit into the system. I only had like 2 friends and both of them moved or left. And I basically had no friends during all of junior high. The medicine that I took shut down my social skills. And so I literally was alone at the lunch tables at junior high every day, alone. And I would bring a hacky sack to school and a soccer ball to school and just juggle a soccer ball or a hacky sack because nobody would play with me. Still looking back at that, I have so much compassion for my younger self. But for so many years, I blamed and judged myself as being awkward and for being a certain way. And I actually have validated the reason why people had not spent time with me was because I was the problem. And I had formed this belief that there must be something wrong with me. When I became a high schooler, I learned to fake it. I learned to act a certain way, to mimic the popular kids. And I became kind of a class clown. I remember my first day of school in high school, I said something funny in class and everybody laughed and I was like, this is the kid that I can be. And I became very good at winning others over. I became very good at using my qualities of being a nice guy, of being able to make people laugh. And I used that to make lots of friends. Here's the thing though, years and years and years of that, I had only ever felt more deeply alone. Why? Because I didn't actually feel like people loved me for me. I got to this point where I was like, you don't love me. And this is what I felt internally. You don't love me. You love how much I can entertain you. You love how much I benefit your life. You do not love me for me. And I blamed people. But the problem is I had to take ownership for the fact that I wasn't honest and authentic with who I was with the world. It's a scary thing to do, especially if you believe your authentic self is worthy of rejection. But this is a question we have to answer ourselves, not to wait for everybody else to answer in our lives. We have to decide, do I believe I'm worthy of love and rejectable? I know to some men that's gonna sound like woo-woo language, like that's not for me, bro. I'm just out here trying to get shit done and live my life and I'm trying to go somewhere. I wanna take care of a family. I wanna do this, and this. And it's baloney, it's bullshit. Honestly, if you think that that's true for your life, I can guarantee you that if you get to a point in your life where you experience big depression, where you go through lots of pain or panic attacks, like I know men that have felt that way about their lives, climbed the corporate ladder, manly men in their lives, but then all of a sudden hit 40 or 50 years old and all of a sudden started having panic attacks, started experiencing big bouts of depression. And they're like, I didn't know what to do with it. And they felt powerless and helpless to their circumstances. Why? Because they never addressed this stuff when it counted and when they could. And you are very arrogant if you think that there is not pain underneath the surface in your life that needs resolve. None of us had a perfect childhood. None of us experienced a life with perfect love from every person in our lives. Even if you had fantastic parents. I had all of my friends growing up that would tell me, I wish I had your parents. That was great. And I had great parents and I still do. I love my parents, but they didn't know how to give me what I needed at those times that I needed it. I remember I had to still work through forgiving them for ways that they failed me as parents. But if I lived in denial to the fact that they were imperfect, I would never have been able to process that. And I would have taken over responsibility like I did for the rejection I experienced, the pain that I went through in my life. When there's a healthy spread of responsibility for the pain that we experience. Now, this is not so that we end in massive blame and accusation, making a monster out of our parents or someone else, and so that we can live in perpetual victimhood the rest of our lives. I see people do that. That's what happens when you start seeing the political spirit jump in with people where they're like, people owe me reparations. And it's like, okay, You have pain you need to resolve, and you're expecting everybody else to fix it for you. That's not what I'm advocating for right now. What I'm advocating for is taking massive ownership for your life, but that involves you looking under the surface of what's going on. Let's look at loneliness, okay? There are reasons why we feel afraid of being our authentic self with people. If I'm truly my authentic self, they'll leave me. My spouse will leave me. My friends will leave me. If I'm not the nice guy, like some of us have taken on these different personas at times. I know people that have this weird anxiety. I won't call it a weird anxiety. Okay, I have empathy and compassion for this, but people that feel a pressure to always be the joy person, you know, it's like, oh no, things are good. When you ask them how they're doing, things are great. God is so good in my life. And you're like, okay, you're always good and you never have something to share. Okay, cool. I don't personally feel connected to those people. I'm always like, what's really going on in your life? And then there are people that are really good at performing. Like they're actually just really good at stuff. You're like, man, you're really fit. You're working out at the gym all the time. Whoa, you're making plenty of money. Whoa, it seems like you have plenty of friends and you're the funny person. Whoa, it's like, you can like look at their life and you're like, you're a great performer. Maybe you're that person that's watching this video. But here's the thing. How many times have you experienced in the last 5 to 10 years where you got to be at an actual rock bottom or low experience and people get to see you when you're not performing well and then still go, I love you and choose you. I choose you and love you in this place. Would you choose and love yourself in that place? Would you allow yourself to ever be in a place where you don't have it together? You're not winning. And would you love yourself in that experience? If the answer is not an immediate yes, and there's probably some different accusation and shame you need to address towards yourself. It might sound like, well, that's like way too dramatic for what I'm actually experiencing. It might feel that way right now. But imagine this. You have a 4-year-old child that walks up to you and is like, oh my gosh, I just lost my football game. And let's say they made a terrible mistake and you know, they were so frustrated that they hit one of the players. And would you go up to that 4-year-old and be like, you're so stupid? And why are you so terrible at football? Like, you just need to figure this out. No. Like, hopefully you wouldn't say that to a 4-year-old. You'd want to unpack, like, what's going on? What were you feeling when you decided to hit that child? Like, what's going on? Like, I guess it seems like you're beating yourself up here about this game. You wouldn't be the person that is accusing that 4-year-old, but we do it towards ourselves all the time. And here's the thing. We are all of the versions of ourselves that have ever existed, meaning inside of me, there's still a little boy Spencer that's seeking attention, seeking love, seeking validation, seeking approval. And I get to answer those questions. I get to have a God that answers those questions for me of, am I enough? Am I lovable? But if we actually block off, if we actually like hold up a stiff arm to love, or if we are rejecting ourselves or accusing ourselves, we're actually doing that to a little boy version of us. Let me create a case for this. So there's a lot of work that's been done on this, but basically when you have a trigger that happens, let's say you do lose a game or you lose an account in business or you lose a lot of money, we get this wave of emotions that hit us, whether it's like you feel stuck, you feel like you need to fight, you get like anxiety, you feel like scared, you get launched into, I need to fix this. That's a triggered thing that's actually flashing you back. It's called an emotional flashback. It's where your amygdala and your brain gets hijacked and you get this dump, this flood of emotions that hits you, and it sends you into fight or flight. Now that fight or flight reaction is something that's been programmed into us from a very young age. And what a lot of us do is we either like steamroll over that and try and do the right thing. And some of us have gotten really good at disciplining behaviors and things like that, but we still never really get what our heart needs. And so the triggers keep coming. Or a lot of people, they just shut down and they don't know what to do, or they enter into their fight flight response, which is usually the programmed response, which is usually reactionary. And with all of the research that I've seen on this, the only thing that's ever actually helped people move out of, like very quickly, a fight flight response is compassion and empathy. There's a lot of studies and tests that have been done on this. You can read Complex PTSD by Pete Walker. You can read any of John Bradshaw's books like Homecoming. There's a lot of psychology on this. And so compassion, nurture, empathy, like practiced empathy, is actually what soothes that part of our brain to enter back into true adult us. You can't actually enter into adult you by forcing yourself into it. That's actually you going into a false adult version version of yourself where you're trying to like whip this kid back into shape. Like, no, you better figure this out. And you're getting a right behavior without a heart behind it. And that's how we become more and more disconnected from ourselves. And what happens when we're disconnected from ourselves is that loneliness feeling is there. And that happens when you've trampled over your own heart for long enough in your life. You might feel this to a varying degree right now. The way to get free from that is to stop and recognize that your heart has probably been hurting. We need to actually get to the tender emotions underneath the failures, mistakes, things that we're experiencing in our lives, the areas we don't measure up, the standards that we've held over ourselves we didn't meet. Recognizing that you feel hurt, you feel lonely, you feel scared of being rejected. Getting to those tender emotions is actually the way that your heart can get what it needs to move into true adulthood experiences. I've never felt more confident as a man until after I felt like the little boy in me that never got his needs met finally got his needs met, finally got seen, finally got heard, finally felt loved. I had to get to a point where I could see 12-year-old chubby, awkward Spencer and go, I don't blame you for the rejection you experienced. I'm sorry you went through that. I love you. And I choose you, and you don't have to change for me to choose you. When I was able to do that and love that little boy Spencer to that degree and actually feel it, like it took time, but to actually feel that, there was a confidence that I felt in every environment where it's like, oh, you actually can't touch me with your rejection or abandonment because it's not about me, it's about you. And that's what you start learning. When you have become so secure within yourself, it's usually because you've learned to love and accept the parts of you that you've rejected for a long time. Now, does that mean you accept terrible behaviors and go, yeah, now I can keep doing those things and I love myself in it? No, those are not good for you. They're not good for people. But you can see the heart underneath it of why. And that's the heart that needs love. Now you can still train, like I'd say the children that you can train the easiest, you have equity with, meaning they trust you to share something, to share guidance, to help them with a better way to do things. It's because they feel seen and known and loved by you. They know you have their best interests at heart. So when you go to train them, they feel like this is a person I'll trust to train me. Versus when you're carrying a whip and you're like, you suck, and you're trying to whip them into shape, they don't trust you, they're scared of you. And they're gonna give you the right behavior when you're looking, but when you're not looking, they're gonna go into impulse and fear because none of their heart needs are met and there's no secure attachment. This has to happen in us before we can actually bring it to the world around us. When you go on this journey, watch how your relationships around you flourish as well. Watch how people feel around you when you actually treat yourself this way. The second commandment Jesus gave was love your neighbor as you love yourself. This has to happen internally for us. And this whole self-love thing has become this woo-woo fake self-love where you're like, okay, I love you, gosh. And it's like, no, love doesn't matter for adult you in some of those moments. You've learned to get by without it. It's the child that's inside of you that still feels alone, that needs to be recognized and loved. And so I just beg to ask this question: the areas where you felt most lonely, when and where and why did they happen? And how old did you feel in those moments? How old did you actually feel? How old do you feel in your loneliness? How long have you felt lonely? When you can answer those questions, that's gonna unlock a whole new journey for you. And then in turn, it unlocks a lot of opportunity for confidence in your life. Hope this wasn't too deep. I'd love to hear your comments, honestly. Like if you guys have thoughts about this while you're watching, you're like, dude, that was too much for me, or I didn't really understand when you said this, like help me out. Like leave your actual thoughts so I can see what I need to create more content on or how I need to articulate things better. I'm trying to put together things that I've been on a journey with in my life and share them with you in hopes that they benefit you. And if they don't, well, then that means I need to learn to communicate things differently or better for you. And so influence isn't about me feeling good about myself. I'm not making this YouTube to feel good about myself. Maybe there's some aspects of that, but I'm working through that stuff. My real desire in this channel is to benefit you in some way. And I can only do that if we make this a dialogue. So share with me in the comments how this was for you. If you want more videos like this and you want to stay along in this conversation with me, then please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can see those videos when they come out. Hope this was helpful. I'll see you on the next video.